Good evening. How's the volume? Good enough? Okay. On behalf of the Friends of Boatwright Memorial Library, I want to welcome you to the 2001 Pepple Lecture. Along with the fall book sale, this is one of the two major events that the Friends sponsor annually. The Pepple Lecture was established in 1989 to honor Professor Edward C. Pepple and his wife, Mary S. Pepple. We're very pleased that Dr. and Mrs. Pepple are here with us this evening, right here in the front row, accompanied by members of their family. Please acknowledge them. Dr. Pepple, a member of the Richmond College class of 1932, returned to Richmond 5 years later with his PhD and taught in the university's English department until retiring in 1978. Please take a moment after the lecture tonight during the reception to view Dr. Pepple's portrait out in the UCREP gallery. Fletcher Stiers, over here on the other side in the front row, president of the Friends, and the rest of the organization's members invite you to join the Friends to support the important work of the library. We welcome new members, and we also welcome donations to the Pepple Lecture Endowment Fund. Membership information is available on a table outside during the reception. During the past 2 years, the University of Richmond has invested a great deal of time, energy, and intellectual capital in creating a strategic plan for the university for the first decade of the new century. This academic year, the focus has been on carrying out the plan. The library figures in the plan in several ways. Most visible is the goal to expand and renovate the Boatwright Library building. Even before the Board of Trustees approved the strategic plan, work on this important project began last spring. The first step was to hire an architectural firm that specializes in library design. Library design is an abidingly hot topic among librarians. When directors of college and university libraries get together, the talk inevitably turns to library buildings and architects. Sooner or later, and almost always sooner rather than later, the firm Shepley, Bulfinch, Richardson, and Abbott of Boston comes into the conversation. And just as soon as SBRA comes up, the name of Geoff Freeman, its principal library design specialist, just as surely comes up. Mr. Freeman, a graduate of Trinity College in Connecticut, has earned 2 master's degrees from Harvard University's Graduate School of Design. Since then, he, probably more than any other individual, has transformed our thinking about the design of university library buildings. In project after project, he has risen to the challenge that he describes as, quote, planning for the inevitable and the unforeseeable. He does that by listening and questioning. He listens to the faculty, students, and librarians at a university about how they use information resources, what they hope for their library, and the direction in which the institution is moving. He also questions them about their assumptions about how they will use the library in the future and what they will expect of it. At other universities, this process with Mr. Freeman has produced distinctive, leading-edge libraries that stand as models for their successors to emulate and even to surpass. These libraries are not signature projects by jet-setting names of the architectural world, libraries that stand in large part as monuments to artistic ego. They are rather libraries that work. The libraries Mr. Freeman and his colleagues produce fulfill their primary obligation to serve the needs of their distinct university communities. Mr. Freeman's contributions include the Leaving Library at the University of Southern California, an oasis for undergraduates in a large research university, and a library that brings together technology and library services in a synergistic partnership. He also helped create the Johnson Center at George Mason University, a multi-purpose facility that makes the library as accessible to commuting students as it makes other necessities such as food and computer labs. He has also worked on the renovation of Yale University's cathedral-like Sterling Library, the new addition at Dartmouth College's Baker Library, and many others too numerous to mention. Several years ago at an American Library Association conference, I attended a program on academic library planning and design. One of the speakers was Geoff Freeman. I was seated beside the library director of a small private college in western Iowa. I had seen that college's recently expanded and renovated library earlier that year. It is an attractive, inviting, and thoroughly functional library. Nevertheless, when Mr. Freeman was introduced, the library director leaned over to me and wistfully confided, "This is the guy we really wanted for our project, but his firm was too busy at the time to take us on." We are fortunate then not just to have chosen Geoff Freeman to work with us, but that Geoff Freeman and SBRA have chosen to work with and for the University of Richmond. The Friends of Boatwright Memorial Library are doubly fortunate then to have Geoff Freeman with us here this evening. It's my great pleasure then to introduce to you this year's Pepple lecturer and, by the way, a Richmond native, Geoffrey T. Freeman.
Turn those on for me. Excuse me. I was taken aback by being introduced as a Richmond native. I've explained to some people, indeed, I was born in Richmond. Unfortunately, given the weather today, I left Richmond before the age of 1. I was raised and spent all my life in Boston. I've traveled this week and come back. We have over 3.5 feet of snow. I arrived home last night. We live on a farm at the end of a long road. I spent about 2 hours digging out and plowing out and making room for all the animals. And I come down here today and I wonder why I ever left. So it's nice I say I've come home. I really can't claim that. But it's certainly where everything began. I can say that. I'm being asked to talk about libraries, which is really my passion. My 25 years, and a little bit more now in architecture, has all been designing libraries. There is no finer building type from an architect's perspective to be involved in. And the reason for that is that libraries are really the center of a life. They are the center of an academic life. We went through a period of time a number of years ago where people really questioned whether we were going to have libraries anymore. And the idea with the connected campuses, with all of the electronics and the internet and the rest of it, what would the role of the library be? And Jim referred to a library we did out at the University of Southern California, and then we followed that with a number of Emory and other institutions, and we've now been able to track very carefully what happens when we go in and revive and we rethink and we reposition what this incredible, valuable resource, the academic library, is on a campus, when we bring new life into these buildings. Well, we've tremendously underestimated what the use is by the students and the faculty when we've completed these projects. Indeed, what we're finding is libraries are now more used than they ever were before. And that's extraordinary, with the ability to get an information now anywhere on college campuses. What we're finding is students are getting preliminary information outside. They realize that the sense of place, the sense of scholarship, the intellectual center is indeed the library. It's a place to socialize. In an academic sense, it is the intellectual center. So what we're finding now is a tremendous resurgence of re-looking at libraries at the major institutions in this country and repositioning them truly as their principal academic resource, as really their intellectual heart. So there's no more exciting time than to think about a library. It is not a peripheral facility. It is the center of a campus. It's a place that really where true scholarship starts, where questions are asked, where information is accessed, information is forwarded, is manipulated, original questions are answered, navigation takes place. It really is the heart. So with all of the talk about access outside and distance and all the rest of it, we can honestly say now that the library is the central place, and it really is the future for many institutions. That Vartan Gregorian, who is one of the great thinkers in the library world, who head of the New York Public Library, then president of Brown University, made the very clear statement in which he said, there can be no great university without a great library. And I believe that, and I think I can prove that. So the question really is to all of us, as an institution moves forward, how does the library move with the institution? Buildings have lives. They get through that. They must be renewed. We must bring them forward. And the real challenge that I find really exciting at Richmond is how do we take a library which is ideally sited in the middle of the campus. The hardest thing for an architect is to move the building to put it in the right place. And your library is absolutely in the right place. So the question is, how do we take this building and move it forward to be really the complement that it needs to be in a leadership position with the institution as the institution moves forward. And we think that can be done. What I'm going to do, I'm an architect, so I have to show you photographs, and I'll talk about libraries. And if you nod off, that's fine, and I won't be disappointed at all. But I want to talk about things that we think about today in designing libraries. What's important to us, what are the issues that we deal with, and why I think there's so much excitement in really providing the center of academic life. And this is what a whole residential institution is about. It's where people come together and where they truly learn. I'll talk, if people can't hear me, I'm going to be looking a little bit at the slides. I always start with the slide on the left, just so people understand where I'm coming from. That's my favorite library. So that's the Boston Athenaeum. That, to me, represents what truly a great library is all about. The wonderful thing about a library is that it never forgets its past. The library is the past, the present, and the future. It's not disregarding and that's throwing anything away. It's celebrating its past, but it's also moving into the future. The slide on the right is a library in Holland. That's not a facility we've done, but it really represents a lot of the issues of libraries today in terms of the technology. How can you put technology into a space, which I don't particularly think that's terribly well done, but how can you do that and design around the use of information? So there's a lot to learn in where we're going with these facilities. So to me, the great libraries of the past are still wonderful lessons. And we can take facilities like on the one on the left, it's a library by the originator of our firm, H.H. Richardson. We can renovate that. The library on the right, Yale University. We can take the great reading rooms, and if you're interested to talk with students as to what is the place that they seek in the library, it is still the great reading rooms. They're not talking about supermarkets. They're interested in a very special place. Students want to go into libraries to be inspired. There has to be something that really still tingles the spine when you go in these buildings, a sense of inspiration. And it's fascinating that students can recognize that today. So we're still able to take great places and make them even better and advance them. But what are students coming from? What is their experience? Their experience is very much, I will say, library on quotes on the slide on the left. That indeed is actually not a library. That is a bookstore. And that is the vocabulary. That is the experience that students are bringing. That's the Borders books. So we're now seeing this idea of the lounge, the social space, how students come together, and where are these students going? They're going to environments from this information, and in many cases to what we see on the right. Now that is a facility. It's not a library, but it's built around information. It's built around the time and the use and the efficiency of information. So we're trying to bridge worlds. We're trying to prepare students in terms that are coming in from a entirely different vocabulary today of their expectation of what a library offers in terms of the type of social space and the amenities, but they're going out into a world in which clearly information is a major commodity, and they've got to be prepared for that. So who are these students? And to me, it's fascinating. The students we have are represented on both those slides. The students on the right are the students that we see in the universities. They're very dedicated. The students we're getting very much are the students on the left. They're a visual generation. They're coming with tremendous knowledge of how to use computers and different types of information. Their span of concentration is fairly short. They need an immediate gratification, but they are terribly bright and very interested. So we have a group of students, the raw material, which is extraordinary today for the universities. And the question is, how do we design around them? The other aspect, very quickly, that's important to the library are faculty of the institution. How do we bring faculty into the library? How do they use the library? How does a faculty member do his research, do his teaching? How does information get to the faculty? So we have tremendous, and the library is an outsource. That the library is not, it's just a single facility. The library is an integrated part of the university. It's a connective tissue. It's just not a standalone facility. It's not a repository. It's an integral part of the institution in providing information, getting it out to students and to faculty, but providing a central place for people to go. So looking at students, and the picture on the left, if you can see the person with the head buried there, this is actually a library of a very well-known medical university. And so libraries vary tremendously in the quality of the spaces that are offered. So we know we can improve tremendously, and we see people taking advantage of just about any type of space, all in the sense of coming together and using material and advancing themselves. So what is the space? How does technology inform it? What do we know when we can bring students together in these spaces? What is very special about that? And it's an environment that is informed both by books and by technology. The books are here to stay. The book is still the finest medium of preserving information. Electronic information is not a preservation medium. We have electronic information. It's booming in terms of it used to be the microprint, now in electronic format, but actually publishing rates have never been higher in paper-based information. So everything is expounding exponentially. It's extraordinary about the amount of information we can access today, both here in Richmond or anywhere in this world, and it's all accessible through the library. So the question is, what is that environment and who are our students? The students we're finding are very inquisitive. They have tremendous initiative. They're very interested if you put exhibition in spaces, and this at Cornell University and Wellesley College, in terms of being able to put out and use space to show students what is available, they take advantage of it. So students are looking for opportunity, and that's what the library really provides. They're very studious today. Given the opportunity, and we're working down at Duke University, and it's fascinating in talking to the students. What is the role of the library? And basically everybody agrees that the role of the library is the place for me to do serious scholarship. It doesn't take place in the residence hall. Where does the learning take place? It is in that space that extends the classroom, that allows people to come together, to work collaboratively, to discover and advance oneself. And that place is the library. So the library has a critical role. So these are the types of spaces. We have books, we have technologies. At right is Princeton University. We just did a reading room. It's fascinating to see students come in and access all types of technology and paper-based material at the same time. So the students I think have a very serious intent today if they have the opportunity to move forward. So that's what the library provides in my mind. Students are social. They take advantage of space to get together. More and more we're spending time designing for the collaborative use of information. It's not just a singular activity. We still want that very special carol. We want the space to go to quiet and the space to dream within a library, but we're talking about space which really allows people to come together. So at Cornell, there's even bridges. People will come in, they'll plug in. We provide connections everywhere in the building beyond places that we could ever possibly imagine that students will actually go to use. So the idea is to really provide facilities which are connected, so that students will get together and be able to take advantage of the use of space to, again, bring the knowledge that is within the university and advance it. The whole question is, what are they doing with information? So it's fascinating from my point of view we spend our time talking to the students, talking with the faculty, seeing what is this activity. That's what we're designing the libraries around today. You used to design a library around how many books we could store in the facility. That's not the issue today. Collections are critically important, but the issue is how people use information, how they advance that information. They take advantage of being present within the university with the faculty and actually ask the questions and move themselves forward. So we're talking about a very dynamic environment, a tremendous amount of energy that takes place. And there's also another side to that, which is the quiet side. And we see this idea, we're working at some universities, we're finding the critical time, interesting at MIT, in planning for the libraries, that the greatest use of information is between 1 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning. That is the greatest time of actual scholarship. Now that's an engineering institution, it's focused on the science, but that tells us now how we have to design and provide information to students when they need the information. So it isn't a matter of just having a facility that closes down. How do we get the library to go outside itself? and really provide something that is a vibrant, connective tissue. But there is the quiet side, and we can't get away from that. One of the major issues we're dealing with is books. Books are here to stay. I am a collector, a lover of books, so I'm very biased in terms of the book and paper-based material. There are real questions of how we can preserve that, so we spend great efforts today in terms of special collections and archives, in terms of the preservation of that material and the role of the library within the institution. I personally feel that if we could jump ahead in 25 and 30 years, we'd see institutions which are recognized for their individual collections as opposed to their duplicate collections, which means that libraries will be more recognized for the special collections unique to the faculty and unique to the research of the institution, because there'll be more and more sharing. And we're beginning to see that. We're beginning to see at Cornell and different places that other institutions are not trying to collect the same information. The premier collection of the Khmer Rouge of Cambodia exists at Cornell University. So why would someone else, when that can be shared and you can access that, why is another university? So we're going to begin to see more and more special collections and the preservations of those collections. And then what is the environment? That is a new special collections room at Dartmouth College. You know, how do we provide something which is not hidden away but is visible, that celebrates what these great treasures are? So the idea is we're trying to make libraries transparent. We want students, we want faculty to see the enormous wealth of this information and to be able to get at it and participate and to use it. So then these are just at Brown, you have special rooms, and how do we do that and make special collections, but we don't hide them behind doors anymore, we make them visible. We try to, students are inquisitive, particularly an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, how do we show them what is here and show them the richness of the institution to do that? How we store collections is, I guess, the critical issue. As we expand and expand, we actually do not store collections as shown on the right, but it illustrates the fact that we have to be very imaginative today in terms of how we are housing these collections, because we cannot continue to expand the real estate in the central campuses just generated by collections. So we're looking at many, many different ways, and that means every institution today that we're dealing with is trying to understand how much collection to hold within the central facility, how to make that collection accessible to students and researchers, but also design around the student and the activity of learning and technology, not dominated purely by how much linear footage of shelving. So that means we're looking at putting books in compaction. And I could go on for hours to tell you the stories that we have that people say, oh no, we can't ever put books in compaction. I'm going to be squished in the aisles, it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be to the end of the world. But when you begin to say that that's a way that we can actually provide and we can make it humanly accessible, we don't have to make them long rows and all the rest of it, that it's just another means available to us to double up the amount of space. So we have to get into this. The other issue is really on the right, which is off-site storage. And that's a reality of every major university today, that we can't house all collection on site, but we can make it readily available in document delivery. So that means within 12 hours, it can be brought to the faculty or to the institution, to the student for use. So these are parts of the issues of libraries today, and it isn't all one or the other. They're all on the table in terms of how to make a really ideal library. Now, technology is the other major issue, and technology, I've used the slide on the left to say that technology has moved forward. It's dragging a lot with it. The issues really became in libraries by the cartoon is what happens with a computer and what happens with a book. Is it compatible? How do they come together? The answer very much is yes. So what's happening is we're seeing the integration, of electronic technology, computer-based information with paper-based information and with media-based information. It's all coming together in the library. So in a very short span of time, we've gone from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. We're now designing around the environment that is not dominated by the machine, but is really dominated by how people use the information. The transmission of media information becomes critical now in libraries, not only within the library, but to the university as a whole. So the library, again, becomes connected. So the spaces that we used to have are now, this is a media room at Wellesley College on the right. It looks like a lounge. It's a very intensely used space by the students of Wellesley College to come in and view and access media of all different types. Excuse me, I jumped ahead there. I'll get gotten out of. So the spaces that we're now creating in libraries are very sophisticated. They're presentation spaces. They're spaces for faculty, to bring faculty within the institution to talk about how to use information in different formats. And the idea is, how do we provide space that combines all these formats? What are the types of spaces we can transmit directly to classrooms? But these classrooms that we did in 10 years ago are now being replaced by much more dynamic spaces in which students and faculty are coming in and are able to use information within that space, to manipulate that space, to have breakout space, and also talk from a long distance point of view with faculty at another institution. And that's what excuse me if I get the screen, if I can, I can't, there we go. What that screen does, allows you in the space, basically allows the long distance aspect. So a class here takes place, and it does, in this particular case, the faculty was in Oxford in England, and the class was taking place within the university, and students are able to talk back and forth and use information and transmit documents. So that's what the library does. It's very, very dynamic. So the question for us in terms of planning libraries, where is all this going? How fanciful can this become? Well, it's not that fanciful. It's actually going to be very grounded. Where the diagram on the left is, we're now planning libraries around how people are learning. So it's not around the storage, it's how people process information, how faculty, students get together, and what are the different types of learning that takes place, and how can the library celebrate that? So the library truly becomes the center of the campus. It becomes the intellectual center. And that's what's intriguing about Boatwright in its connection. If we were to open it up to both ends of the campus, which is the intent, it really can become that intellectual center. It's sad today when we talk to the interesting thing when we talk to some of the student guides, the question on the campus tours was, do you come in and talk about the library? And the student tour guide said, well, if somebody asks the question, we go in the library, but if they don't, we go right by. Well, that's not right. The idea is the library needs to be celebrated. It is the center of a university. So we can take this facility and we can indeed make it that. And so that's what the breathing the new life within the building. So what we're doing, and very quickly, is we're coming into buildings, we're retrieving spaces, we're finding spaces, opening up spaces, making connections. There's at Columbia or at Princeton, the same thing. How do we use the building that's there and begin to create the type of intellectual community that the library deserves? And so, again, this is what all the excitement is about. How do we create this very, very special facility? Some of the elements that go in the library are a little different today, and I just show this. These are the cyber cafes. We're saying that part of this whole idea of students coming in, can we create an intellectual environment and break all the rules and have coffee and croissant, that type of thing within the library? Well, actually we can. This is at Columbia University, it's at Dartmouth. We can create spaces that really, again, address community, address what happens when people come in and spend 2 and 3 hours or 15 minutes. But the idea is that students really need to go through this building. We can create the building that students want to be in. And again, that's the purpose of being, in this liberal arts residential institution. It's all around service. It's reconfiguring the service desk, combining the services within the library, so we no longer have the single points of circulation or reference necessarily, or technology. They're all coming together. Students do not distinguish between the format of their question. It means they're basically format blind, we would say. It doesn't make any difference to them whether it's a paper-based information or electronic information. They want the information. And one of the sad parts today is the students very readily look first at what is available electronically. What we need to do is to get them to the primary sources. We need to get them back. It's not a matter of just accepting what is out there on the web. We know there's a lot of junk out there. The idea is, how do they look at that? How do they compare sources? How do they get beyond that to get to the original document, to begin to get the thinking, to see what's behind it, what the history of thinking is, so they can be capable of asking questions and doing original thinking? That's what builds knowledge. So there's a tremendously important role for the library. The librarians today are catalysts. They are teachers. It's not just a matter of saying, do I have something or not? It's being able to explain how to get it, how to use it, how to analyze it, how to manipulate it, how to forward it, publish it. We do publishing in libraries today. They're wonderful environments. So some last slides, just the architecture, the type of spaces. Again, it's a celebration of really what a library is all about. We look to the larger spaces. We try to make connections to collections. When you come in a building, you want to see books. You don't want to just see machinery. We'd love to have technology disappear, and that is going to happen. We're designing technology. It's going to be built into the surfaces. So that's going to go away, but the book will not go away. So the idea is, how do we really suggest a place of scholarship? And this is just a little anecdote. Sometimes it's really kind of fun. This is at Yale University, and we were doing a plan for Yale, and Yale was going to build a brand new music library. And Yale did not have the funds to build that new music library because of the cost of rehabilitation of their campus, which most of you know is in the billions of dollars because of the deterioration of all the buildings on that campus. When we did the study, we looked at the space on the left, which is just an interior mechanical four-sided space open to the air. It was a way of bringing fresh air down into the Sterling Library that we were renovating. And we did a study and said for half the cost of building a brand new library, we could build a music library right inside Sterling Library. And that's what you're looking at from inside those windows. You're looking into that space, and that's the library we built inside the Sterling Library. And we think it's a library that talks about inspiration. And it's fantastic, rather than having, for Yale, a separate music library. Isn't it wonderful to have music right in the center of their major research library? And what's fascinating is the students in there, 60 or 70% of them are not there to use it as a music library. It's there because it's a special space, but they are plugging in, they are using technology, they're interested in the collections, and it just broadens their horizons. So this idea of serendipity and discovery is real, and the library provides that. So from an architect's point of view, that's the excitement to us, of coming in a building and providing something and giving it new life. Now, these are, just as a quick example, these are public libraries in this country, and the architecture of libraries has become quite strident, particularly in the public library world. That's the San Antonio Public Library by Legarreta, and on the right is the proposal for the new Seattle Public Library. They're really pushing the role and I think my feeling is missing what the idea of libraries is all about. Libraries need to be designed from the inside, expressing a function, as opposed to the architectural monument. And I'm sure there are very good reasons, but I think we're, on an academic side, there's something very different. These are pictures of two premier academic libraries in Europe, one in Great Britain and one in Holland. And the emphasis in Europe, again, has been the architectural expression, independent of the context of the campus. And I think there's some loss there, and they're losing, I think, some extraordinary opportunities. I feel in this country we're still able to really understand what our past is and build within context. At the Columbia University, that is a great library. Now, that architecture was done in the 20s, same architect that did the Yale University Library. We've totally renovated and brought that building up to a standard that is of today. So we can take buildings and we can move them and we can celebrate them. We don't have to take them out. The interesting at Cornell University, the whole library that we did there, the trustees said they will fund it, but on the requirement that when it's completed, they wouldn't see it. So we said, well, how do we do that? So the whole library is underneath that green lawn. It's totally underground. But it's actually a wonderful library. It's all for special collections. It's a fantastic space. If you go to Ithaca, I ask you to go into it. So the opportunities from the architect are unlimited in terms of what we can do. It's the question of what the opportunity is at the institution and the leadership of the institution to really reinvent the library. So libraries, to me, are transparent. They're something that we open up to the university. We don't close them down. We want to draw people into the facility. We want to make it the intellectual center. And I think that's what the opportunity is at Richmond. These are the last two slides, and I just want to say that the opportunity here is extraordinary. This is an extraordinary time to invest in libraries. because it really is investing, I think, in educational future. And the future will be in these facilities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Freeman has said that he'd be happy to take some questions. So, Ann?
I'm Ann Sterling, and I'd like to ask the following. You were saying very rightly that libraries are meant to be places that inspire their users, and yet the fact of the need for security against theft of these wonderful items in special collections and other books is a sad reality of life. Have there been any ways that you have come across that sort of keep the sordid part of being sort of, you don't like to be frisked when you leave the library? Are there new ways to make security a little less obvious but still doing its job?
Yeah, it's very difficult. The one thing that we're doing is we're finding, it used to be the rule of a library, of an academic library specifically, is that only could have one entrance. At Dartmouth College, we have 5 entrances into that library. Now, that's a commitment by that college and that community, and Dartmouth spent a great deal of time saying, what is the purpose of our library? And Dartmouth has said is that we are a village community, and therefore we're going to provide security within. So we're going to allow students to come in at different hours, to come in through this facility, but then we're going to secure at different points within that. So the idea is, rather than having one central door that then says yes or no, you can come in, you're allowing a number of people to come in, but then you're beginning to stage within the type of spaces that they can go to. And so there's a real interest today to err on the side of bringing people in. Yes, we need to secure collections. That's why that glass collection at Dartmouth in the Rounder, that is all special collections. There's no way you can get in that. I cannot get in that. Nobody can get in that. But yet I can go in that space and study in that space and observe it, and I can see it, so it's not hidden behind it. We spent some time with the various, just a little anecdote with the different devices of security, and I think the main thing is you can build, rather than the turnstiles that we see in supermarkets, we actually can get the manufacturers to build it into the entryways themselves and make it less obtrusive. And that takes, it really is pounding the table, but it can be done. We found at a college in Philadelphia that they had the circulation desk rather than directly against the door, which you don't have to do anymore. And they put a camera so they could observe if people went through the security, stop them, they would just take their photograph. What was fascinating, of the first 15 people that broke that security, went through it, 12 were faculty and 3 were students. So.
In the back, please.
That's I look immediately, it's very much an administrative issue. That, if I understand the question, is how does the library serve the community beyond the academic community? We're working out at Rice University, and Rice has a charter. It's very interesting. As an academic library, it is also a public library. It's an enormous, actually, it's a wonderful opportunity, but it is a tremendous problem as well. And the way that's done, basically, is handled at most universities is really extending through a friends organization, giving privileges and allowing people to come in and extend specific privileges, and then using the library on that basis. But it is not the difficulty of a library today, academic, or is much more difficult for a public library, is that they are the single largest facility on a campus or in a city with the least amount of supervision. So at Columbia University, before we renovated, we found syringes in the spines of books. I mean, what happens up within the multi-tier stack and all the rest of it? And so what happens is that you can actually address that from a design point of view. And the fact that the spaces suggested that they were unsafe, they became unsafe. So we spend a great deal of time of allowing, when you go into a building, you can see from level to level, you can see activity, and it makes it safe, and therefore then people will populate the space and make it good. But off the subject, the question of how do you extend the library, I think it really is an issue within the university. It's a very delicate issue. One of our problems that, as an architect, we've found when we renovate these facilities, they become singular facilities, not only for the campus but the community. And the usage, we used to think that we could more than double or triple the usage after renovating a building. Well, that was an underestimate in terms of how students use these facilities. So how do you serve your client population, which is the academic community as well as the public? And that becomes part of the discussion. I don't know the answer to that. I see it basically in really just on the privileges issue more than anything else. I don't have a good answer. Yes, sir.
Mr. Freeman, I want to ask you about centralized versus decentralized. As you know, for example, here at the University of Richmond, we have at least 3 libraries besides Fulbright Library: music, science, and law. And I'm sure there are people who feel like the business school should have its own library. And I can imagine some other departments or schools that make a good case for having their own library, especially in light of the very sorts of goals that you were defending or advocating: accessibility, group work, getting faculty together with students. Seems like to me you could make a very good case for decentralizing libraries. Now, what's the case against it?
Are there other questions? I think that is probably one of the most difficult questions, and I think we're interpreting libraries a little bit differently today, and rather than the decentralized libraries, we're looking at distributed libraries. And basically that means, and part of the, I'll explain that part of the model, one of the very good examples is MIT has 7 libraries. And that is a decentralized library system. But what we're finding there, the demand of the students is the students will go, because of the interdisciplinary nature just here within the engineering and sciences, forgetting the humanities, is that they're using 3 and 4 libraries. So the question is, how can we, at that institution, is there a way to pull together some central resources, but yet still provide a point, it's almost a commercial entrepreneurial attitude, is still being able to put points of access to the library where the demand is. So that means we may take central collections and bring them together in terms of an efficiency of use and maintenance, and because of the demand of how students using them, but we also at the same time still have to provide an electronic access and some smaller collection. The models, I don't think, I mean, and this is now, I'm an architect, not an administrative an institution, whatever. I think the issues vary so tremendously. At Rice, the issue there was very clearly in expanding the library. One of the options was to build a science library, and was the decentralized collections that are currently held. That institution of 4,000 students with a very significant graduate population in engineering decided that it was absolutely significant to the mission of that institution to keep the science with the humanities and social science. Now that is that institution's feeling of a small institution, of a contained institution, of what they were offering the students. Now to say that that is right for another institution, I'm not so sure. But I think the idea of a series of totally independent libraries, the redundancy becomes difficult. I think there's a different model, which is a distributed model that still allows points of demand And we can do that with technology. It's really satellite libraries, and that's a different concept. So I think that there's some evolution. It isn't just one or the other. It's rethinking. It's not abandoning and pulling everything together. It's still being able to meet the demand, for faculty and for students, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to have independent collections and run independent libraries. There's a way of thinking that through with document delivery and electronics. That seems to be the direction that we're seeing. Again, I'm a reactor to Isaiah, just how to do it architecturally. Yes, sir. Well, I want to open up Boatwright on two sides. I tell you, right, that from the very beginning, we see this. I think Boatwright is nothing other than an enormous opportunity. I mean, right now it's a wall, and you have a campus that's trying to find a center, and the library is the center. I mean, and I think I've worked up at Colgate University, and try as we might, the library is on the edge of the campus, down a great big hill. No matter what we do to that library, we can't put it in the center. So you end up with a different system. You have the library in the right place. So the question is, how do we exploit that and really provide? I'm so committed to seeing students today, this concept of building intellectual community. It does exist. Students are inquisitive. We spent a lot of time with students at Rice and trying to ask them what was missing at Rice University. And what was fascinating, we reported to the provost there, the students said, basically, would like more time to learn. And we said, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, we spend so much time fulfilling requirements, and we found out the students, the amount of double majors and triple majors is just extraordinary. But what students did, basically, they said, we want to learn from other students. We want to discuss, we want to explore, we want to see what graduate students are doing. We said, then Rice has a college system, so does it take place in the college? And they said, well, that's the beginning, but why I'm at Rice is because of the total community. So basically it came down to the library is that opportunity. And it came from the students. They said, that's why I want to be at the institution. So my feeling is that's what Boatwright has. The opportunity is by opening up the building, by a reorganization in it, the ability to go in now and to go down to the lower level is a bit scary. I mean, not for me, but I think, in terms of, you think of the life and the hours of the use of this facility, and to give the opportunity for students to really find a place that they feel safe and they want to explore ideas or they just want to study, it is the library. It is not the residence hall. No matter what anybody says, we see access of information, we see a level of study, but scholarship does not, it just doesn't, and that's just coming from the students. So the library has a real place. So the idea is that can we open up, to the lakeside, to the upper campus? Can we create a center within that building? Can we go horizontally through it and connect it vertically? That's what the idea is. And then when I'm in that, can I see what the library's all about? And if I can see that, and I can see the services and see the collections, then we're going to have an intellectual center. And it's all there. That's what's exciting to us. We think it's all possible to do. I mean, our level of study has been really just on the programming side, looking at what the need is, looking at projections, and beginning to explore with the university the feasibility about it. And so we're just in that beginning exploration, but our conclusion is, it's there. Now it's a matter of working with the institution and how we deliver that and the task of beginning to envision it and fund it and all the rest of it. But the first part is there. It can be done. But we think it's waiting to happen.
Do great universities and great libraries necessarily go together?
I think, do they necessarily go together? Yeah, I think that they do. I think, and that was Gregorian's concept, and I think that, then we could spend a lot of time defining what is a great library. And a great library clearly used to be defined by the depth and extent of its collection. It's not so anymore. It has to do with its services, it has to do with the type of information, the professionalism within that, the ability to draw faculty within it, and to really provide, this added value to the experience of being in the institution. So we're defining what a great library is very differently. It isn't because it's 300,000 square feet versus 100,000 square feet. It's what takes place in that library. So I concur. I say yes, you have to have it. I can't believe that the university, and I don't think the university is going to be able to. We found that the wonderful thing at Princeton is that struggling with Firestone Library, which is a very, very fine research library, but it is disjointed in its services and what it's doing, and it needs to be. And we found that as soon as we said that basically, when Princeton came to the conclusion that the institution would not be competitive unless it really began to rethink that library, and that's what moves the institution. It wishes to remain competitive. So the library has to move with the institution. It is not a static facility that stands there. It's got to keep going forward. Thank you very much. Oh, excuse me. Oh, one question. Sorry.
Are there changing ideas about the space that is reserved for the use of library staff? Is there new thinking in that direction, or is it always, is that sort of a common?
Staff in the sense of workplace? Yeah, there is in the sense we're really, we know flexibility is the key in the library, and we all talk about that. So, how do you design the support spaces, and by the time we get to actually build the building, the work patterns have changed. And so we know the lessons. At the University of Southern California, we thought we could second guess in terms of a center, in terms of for faculty publishing using new electronic information with state-of-the-art. We're in partnership with a number of publishing companies and all the rest of it. We learned that we were 100% wrong in trying to second guess how people would use space. So what we're learning is to provide the networking, the electronic flexibility, to deal with the acoustics, and doing the lighting. The change really is that rather than sequester and hide the service aspect of the library behind, it's coming out front. And that the professionals in the library are all being asked to do multitasks. It is no longer single tasks. It's no longer pushed behind. We expand these libraries, and we find out that the staffs can't be expanded. So what's happened is the professionals in the library are being asked to do more and more, so we have to provide a place for them that puts them out front and works for that. So there's a sort of inverse demand here, and that we've seen that a lot. So, but there's no magic. The flexibility is really the key, and bringing them up front and not making fixed spaces behind the scenes. Anyway, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you for your questions. And one member of the audience has asked permission to address the Friends briefly, our president, Dr. William Cooper.
Thanks, Jim. And thank you, Jeff. I have a little present here for you to remember the occasion why it's not a library, but it might be a book.
Very small book. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I just want to say how pleased we are and honored we are to have Geoff Freeman and his firm designing this expansion and remodeling of the Boatwright Library. It is a great edifice. It has great exterior potential and great interior strength. But as we move into the future, we do need to open that library up. We do need to have multiple entrances because there's so much traffic coming from what is now the back of the library that could easily and welcomely come in from the Stern Plaza area near the wonderful statue of Claiborne Robbins Sr. And Jeff's doing a great job with his team of designing this. And so that Jeff can buy his next snow shovel in Boston, and so that we can buy the bricks and the tiles and everything else that's going to go into this wonderful expansion, we are going to need a lot of money. And so I ask those of you, and I know all of you feel this way, who've spent time in libraries, or you wouldn't be here, who spent significant time in libraries, reading and learning, and truly being inspired, to join us when we come to your doors and ask for money to support this expansion. It is on behalf of our students, of the present and of the future, so that they can have the kinds of really inspirational opportunities that I know I had as a student. I literally recognized some tables and chairs up there that brought back memories, and they're some of the greatest memories of my life. They were solitary times, and yet, you know, we had a little coffee shop next to a coffee machine, I should say, next to the Xerox machine in one of the medical libraries in Boston that I used to use at night. That was our Borders Cafe in the mid-1970s, but the coffee was almost as good, and the memories are very rich, and I know all of us have those memories. Public libraries, elementary school libraries, prep school libraries, university libraries, they're all really, truly some of the world's greatest treasures. And if there was only one library on Earth, you know, there'd be voyages to go to that place endlessly. We take them for granted, but they are just marvelous places and marvelous treasures. So we ask you to join us, and we thank each and every one of you for being here tonight, and especially Jeff for that wonderful presentation. Thank you.
I'm Fletcher Stiers, and I have the honor to be the president of the Friends this year. And I want to thank all of you for coming. I think it's been a very entertaining and educational evening. I want to remind you of two things. We have two more programs. And if I can read my own writing, on March the 4th at 2 o'clock, Richard Waller, Executive Director of the University Museums, will speak in the Laura Robbins Gallery, and his topic will be on the birthstone legends. And then on April the 1st at 2 o'clock, the Venerable Fred Anderson, the Executive Director of the Virginia Baptist Historical Society, is going to speak in room 118 of Jepson Hall. And his topic is going to be Secrets from the Diary of a Richmond College Man, Charles F. James, class of '69. Only that class of '69 is in 1869. This diary was recently acquired for the University Archives. And for those of you who were at the program we had on rare books, you will remember that that diary was on a display at that time. We believe this will be an especially interesting program because, as most of you do know, Fred is always interesting and informative. I want to thank you for coming out and joining us tonight, and I want to invite you all to come out into the UCROPS area of this building where we will have our reception. And thank you again.